Welcome to the More Perfect Union, the podcast that offers real debate without the hate. I'm Kevin Kelton, here as always with my compadres, Greg Matusak.
Hey, Kevin. I'm here waiting for, finally, my COVID relief check. I'm thinking, no whammies, no whammies, no whammies.
Oh, yeah. That's big money coming your way, our way. And we're also here with Ward Anderson.
Hi, everybody. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Happy birthday to several of you. And hopefully happy 2021, which will be better than 2020.
And we have somewhat of a special guest tonight. You've heard about him, you've read about him, and now you're going to hear his voice. It's my son, Max Kelton. Max, welcome.
How you doing, Pop? Hopefully only good things you've spoken about me, but a pleasure to be on. Thank you for having me today. Greg, very nice to meet you. Ward, I feel like we go way back. We saw Bug's Life in the theaters together. So really great time. Glad to be here today. Hopefully we can get into some action.
So there you go. So one of the reasons why I asked Max to be on the podcast, other than the fact that he's visiting me here in Texas and we like doing stuff together when he's here, is that, you know, he brings a different voice, a different generation to the mix, and he's got an experience that we aren't living. He just out of college, and in this COVID world, it's a different experience than getting out of college maybe 3 years ago or 5 years ago, or in our cases, 25 and 40 years ago. So, Max, what is it like to be trying to get, not your first job, because you do have a job now, but to try to get your first serious broadcasting job in the middle of a pandemic?
Well, getting a job anytime is difficult, I think, especially right when you're out of school. And getting a job in broadcasting is especially difficult because, you know, the way that we've spoken about it is you're trying to land a 10 and you're only going for the top of the top, and you're really trying to shoot for the stars. So that's difficult on its own right. And then doing that on top of it when there's not much that's open, and you can't shine in person. All of it's virtual at this point. You know, everybody's adapting to this in their own light and their own way, but doing this from my perspective, getting out of school, 6 months ago, looking for a position in an already competitive field, and it's difficult. It's difficult. So it's really difficult for me to try and stay mentally optimistic, and that's never really been a problem for me in the past. Actually, in high school, they voted me as most optimistic in my small grad class. I have really struggled to maintain that optimism during this pandemic, especially during this job search. I just think it's, there's so much to be negative about. But then, I think back to my health. I think back to my family's health. I think back to my financial stability for where I am right now. I think it also could be much worse than what it is. So, I try and think of it on a positive light. I try and think about the good. I try and think about, what could be worse and try not to take that for granted. But it is difficult. It is difficult right now looking for a position, especially in a competitive market. And, just trying to smile through it as you taught me, Pop.
Okay, so Max, Ward and I were talking off camera, just off mic a little bit ago. We think you're great. We think you're really positive, and we mostly blame your father for your upbringing. But and you're positive and you seem positive, but what about most of your friends and people of your generation, what do we call you, millennials, and the people that I scream to get off my lawn all the time? Do you see that same positive? I mean, things are tough out there. I mean, they suck. We have high numbers of infected and the death rate and unemployment and, cats and dogs living together. Do you still see that positivity that you have amongst your friends and, other recent college grads?
It's really difficult to find that positivity. No, I love to gas myself up. I love to, I love to toot my own horn a little bit, but that positivity just doesn't come around a lot. And especially because a lot of these kids that are my buddies, that are my good friends, it's not only that they are not finding a position, but they're really struggling to get out of school right now. And buddies of mine who are still finishing up school within their last year, they are still trying to figure out how virtual schooling works, what the next steps are, trying to figure out independence in a pandemic. Let me tell you, moving back from school and then, moving back into your parents' house, whether, that's just about what everybody's doing right now. So whether they're finding themselves, their footing professionally, or whether they're still trying to finish up school, everybody is trying to get by day. And I think that's a mentality that you got to have. You got to, when I was doing sports broadcasting in school, was trying to improve every single day, just incrementally, every single day, just get a little bit better. And I think that's kind of the mentality that you got to have now. You got to take it slow. You got to just get through every day as best you can, because there is not a lot, especially for young kids who are getting out of school, who don't know their path, who don't know where they're going, not just in the next 6 months, but tomorrow they don't know what they're going to be doing. For those kids, it is really difficult for them to conceptualize positivity and to manifest positivity. And you just kind of have to tell yourself, you got to speak to yourself that, hey, things are going to go my way. And once you start to get into that mindset, once you start to manifest positivity, manifest that things really will fall into place, and you just got to trust the system, trust the process, trust yourself. That's when things actually start, from my experience, from my short experience, that's when things do start to work out. But a lot of kids my age, they really struggle to find that positivity right now. They struggle to find their stability because everybody's, struggling. Not only have we never been through anything like this, we can't go to our parents, we can't go to the people, our role models, and ask them, hey, how do you handle this situation? Nobody knows how to,
because we don't know either.
Yeah. Nobody knows how to handle it. So I think that's really difficult for these kids, because nobody has that role model that they can look up to that can give them a sure thing answer. Nobody's got the answer right now, so you kind of got to trust your gut. And I think a lot of people struggle trusting their intuition, and that's just what you have to do right now.
We have to find a way, by the way, for the listeners out there who don't get it. You can probably tell from his voice or whatever that or whatnot, but Max is a excellent broadcaster. We got to find a way to somehow get his videos of him broadcasting out there, because they really are great. He's a very talented young broadcaster. But I want to say, as someone who has worked in media and broadcasting for many years, 20-something years, that attitude, that positive attitude you have, will get you nowhere. And you need to just abandon that. It has no place in this business whatsoever, and you need to just go ahead and curb that now before reality swims up and bites you on the ass.
Start drinking now.
You know what, Ward? I'm going to make it life's mission to prove you wrong, my friend.
All I'm saying is that I've worked consistently for a couple of decades and nobody likes me. So,
There may not be a correlation there. It may just be a coincidence. At this point, because he had his own previous commitments, Max left our conversation as we moved on to the news of the week. So let's turn to what's positive in the news this week. Apparently, they made some progress today on the COVID relief bill. I've been so busy barbecuing spare ribs that I haven't had a chance to read up on this.
That's positive, too.
But does anybody know what's in this package, and is this going to pass, or is Trump going to try to sink it? Or
it goes to the Senate on Monday, and there's some procedural things, and it looks like there's a good chance that it will. It's not the bill that everyone wanted. It's about $600 per people of a certain economic level. It's not the 12.
Oh, it's not for everybody? The 600?
No, it's not like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos is not going to get the, although it is barely enough.
It is barely enough to keep people from marching in the streets with pitchforks and torches. It's literally the barest minimum they could possibly do in the richest country in the world.
Well, it's a $600 plus there's a $300 unemployment. There's money to schools for additional COVID cleaning and supplies. There's money that goes to states. The interesting thing that I was that both the Republicans really wanted shielding from lawsuits for employers.
Right.
But that sort of got sidelined.
Good.
Yes. For now. And the thing that the Republicans wanted in was more money towards bigger industries. Okay, so like, hey, why not and this was something that sort of got in the last one, where you saw bigger industries get these loans that were interest-free loans that should have gone to smaller businesses. And I'm using air quotes, like, what is a small industry or a small business? So these things sort of got sidelined so that we could get something passed, but it will come up again, I think, in the next one. And this was something I think it was needed. On Friday, Senator Ron Johnson, he's a Republican from Asshole Town.
Wisconsin, right?
Wisconsin, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He stopped a bill that would have got $1,200. And he said, we've got to worry about the deficit. The deficit.
All of a sudden, they're worried about the deficit.
4 years of out of control spending, and and we're in the middle of
and tax breaks for the multi-rich.
Sure. This
and building a wall on the border.
But now the deficit is like so he's going to rot in some sort of hell. But yeah, $1,200 I think is a little bit more reasonable. Seeing especially as I'm probably going to get that money. I will be honest, I have a stake in this claim. So yeah.
And just for the record, for the listeners that don't know, I live in Canada. I live in Toronto. Although I am an American citizen, born and raised in America, I've been in Canada for 15 years. And I will say this, we got $2,000 per month. Yes, we got $2,000 per month as our COVID-19 stimulus relief package. That's what we got this year. So when I hear about the richest nation in the world only able to offer people $600 a couple of times a year, this is why I say it's what they did in order to keep people from rioting in the streets. And a lot of people have talked about essential services and things that are open and things that are closed. And one of the things that I do believe that will hasten our return to normalcy, or maybe to some degree, is the entertainment industry and the film industry. And a lot of people were upset this week talking about Tom Cruise lost it on the set of Mission Impossible 7. And they're in the midst of filming that movie. And a lot of people are like, why are they out filming movies while doing this anyway? And there were people like myself and others who argued, well, first of all, the entertainment industry is a major part of the American economy. It is huge. And in areas such as Los Angeles, Atlanta, Chicago, New York, it's a huge part of the local economy as well, right? And I think that's also one of those things that's going to help us return to normalcy, is that people really are going crazy that they can't just go and sit and watch a movie. We can talk all we want about how you can watch a movie at home on your big flat screen TV with your surround sound and it's just as good. But you know what? There's millions and millions of people who don't agree, who want to have that experience of going to the theater again. But even still, even if those movies are being made for home viewing, they've got to be made. Someone's got to make them. And there's only so much entertainment in the hopper. And there's only so much people will do looking at their Netflix queue going back years or whatever. Okay. So with that in mind, Tom Cruise losing his mind on the crew of Mission Impossible 7, and how many people either agree with him and many, many people don't.
For those who don't know, Tom Cruise is on the set of Mission Impossible 7. I forget what country they're in. He was recorded having a hissy fit because he saw two crew members breaking COVID protocol by being well within 6 feet of each other. They were looking at a laptop screen or something, and it was very much against the policy that had been set for this production, so that they could actually make a movie during COVID-19. So with that in mind, if you've heard the video and it's out there, you can Google it, you can listen to it. A lot of people think, here's a powerful man, a rich, powerful white man, yelling, screaming, cursing at subordinates, people that work for him, because they broke this rule. They got a little lazy. They got a little lax with their COVID protocols in terms of social distancing. I happen to think that while one can say maybe he didn't have to curse as much, maybe he could have contained his anger a little bit better, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say he lost it. And I believe genuinely, not because he's worried about his paycheck. I don't think Tom Cruise walks through the world thinking, gee, I need this extra $30 million or $40 million. I think he genuinely believes that, just like Ward was saying, part of bringing the world back, part of bringing America back, is bringing back the entertainment industry. And if productions like Mission Impossible 7 start having outbreaks of COVID, they're not going to be allowed to make more movies. What do you guys think?
Okay, one, I don't think you're right. I don't think he's worried that he's not going to make the $30 million. I mean, he might be worried that Xenu might not make the $30 million. And that's a cheap shot. And I'm sorry, Tom. Every story I've ever heard about anyone who knows Tom Cruise personally says that he's a super nice guy. And I apologize, cheap shot. The thing is, he's responsible for every person on the set. And it's not fun. And he probably went in the insurance. They could have got that all yanked. It's not fun to be the boss. And sometimes you yell at people. And, when you're adults, that happens. I'm kind of okay about it because we've had this discussion on this podcast where I yelled at someone at a grocery store. And I wasn't in charge of a $70 million film. I was in charge of my grocery cart. And I yelled at someone at Kroger because they weren't wearing a mask. And I probably used language that I probably shouldn't have. And this was several months ago when everyone was still like, I just don't really see the big deal. It's not a big deal. I think chin diapers are cool. And it's now changed a lot more as we've moved forward, and the numbers have gotten much more dire. But, so I guess Tom Cruise and I are much more alike, in not just, our looks.
Let me say a few things. I want to preface before I go really into this. I want to throw a few facts out there that have been omitted from a lot of this discussion when it comes to Tom Cruise and losing it. I'm going to say one, Mission Impossible 7 was already shut down for breaking COVID-19 rules and because of an outbreak on set. So it's not just that Tom Cruise is being paranoid or a little too touchy about this, which would already give me reason to give him a pass, by the way. It's because this production has already been shut down. This has already happened to them, and people have already been infected. And I believe it was like 11 or 12 people on that set were infected already, and it got shut down.
And I'm sure he did tremendous work, and it took a lot of time and effort and twisting arms at studios to get it opened up again.
Absolutely. And secondly, I'll say this real quick. So it got shut down already. That's one thing. The second thing in this is Tom Cruise, of his own money, spent $675,000 where he rented a cruise ship where he puts up the entire cast and crew of that production on it. So they are isolated, not in a hotel, not in some rented Airbnbs and stuff. They're all staying on a cruise ship that he bought, not with production money, but his own money to put everyone up in. And that entire cruise ship is set up with COVID-19 protocols where everyone is distanced, separated, and they're taken care of. And everything they need is given to them so that they'll be okay, but not breaking COVID-19 rules. So this isn't just a matter of somebody upset that something was going on set. This is a guy who was saying at the time, I've done everything I can for you, and this is how you're going to treat me. And so, yes, the argument can be made, as others have made, he shouldn't yell like that, and he shouldn't have raised his voice, and a good boss doesn't do that. And although I agree with that, right? And some people have said, well, you work in the business, so you're more forgiving of it because you've seen it happen. But that's just it. I have seen it happen. I've seen it happen frequently, and I've seen people lose their minds and lose their temper on set for really petty things. And then everything goes on. But the fact is, in this case, I don't think people realize that Tom Cruise, and I mean this, I don't think people would criticize him so much if it weren't for the Scientology thing. I think so much of the criticism he gets is because he's a Scientologist and because people have seen how into it he is. Not just that he's a Scientologist, but that he's the Scientologist. And I think people, because of that, have turned into this Tom Cruise is a crazy wackadoodle kind of person.
You know, we have our new sponsor, BetterHelp, which is an online counseling program, and maybe Tom Cruise could have used it. What do you think, Greg? Would BetterHelp have been a good place for him to work out his issues?
I think if he would have taken.
You don't really know much about Scientology, do you, Kevin?
I think any time that he would have had a time to talk to someone and take time, I think it would have been a great moment. But I probably don't know that much about Scientology, and I probably should be the last person to talk about it. But you're right. I think it would have been a great place for him to start.
They don't like psychiatry. They don't like psychiatry.
I did not know that. But you know what? We like psychology because we like BetterHelp. Yeah. Because they're the online counseling program that asks what is interfering with your happiness and what can they do to help. You know, if you're having problems achieving your goals, like Max was talking about before, through no fault of his own, but you know, in the COVID world, you could get down you can't see your family, you can't hug your grandchildren, the job market is not what it could be in a better environment. BetterHelp is a place that you could work all of that stuff out in a safe online environment, sort of like over a Zoom call. They will assist you by matching you with your own licensed professional therapist, connect you in a safe and private environment so it's convenient. You don't have to leave your home. And you can start communicating with your therapist sometimes in under 24 hours. It's not self-help. It's professional counseling that you can get online.
And I have to say that it's actually the kind of counseling that I prefer, Kevin, because I feel it's easier for me to open up when I'm at home, when I'm in familiar surroundings and my own residence, my own house. And even though I may be doing it online, I feel more comfortable that way because I'm in familiar surroundings and I don't feel like I'm in someone else's place.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, he's absolutely right. You never know whether you're supposed to lie down or sit on the couches. I'm not kidding about that. That always creeps me out.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. I mean,
take my shoes off.
You know, it's actually a joke. But this is a joke that therapists actually hear. They often have people walk into their office and they go, am I supposed to lay down? And they're like, right. You know, but the truth is many people like myself are more comfortable in spaces that they're familiar with.
And by the way, on Zoom, you still can lay down. So
I'm lying down right now.
They have licensed professional counselors who are specialized in areas such as depression, anger, stress, by the way, Tom, stress, family conflicts, anxiety, LGBT matters, relationships, grief counseling, sleeping issues, self-esteem issues, and trauma. And anything you share, just as with every professional therapist, is totally confidential. It's convenient, it's affordable, and it's there for you if you need it. So, for people who are listening to us, you can get, let's see, what's their offer? It's 10% off your first month just by visiting our sponsor, BetterHelp.com/moreperfect. That's the code that we use to give you 10% off your first month of counseling. So, join over 1 million people who have already taken charge of their mental health during this pandemic by, again, going to BetterHelp, that's HELP.com/moreperfect, and start your comeback today.
I do, however, want to point out the irony of the fact that the hashtag is better health with the slash more perfect.
Yes, more perfect. You can be more perfect just like us. So talking about medical issues, you know who my favorite doctor is these days, Greg?
Is it Dr. Fauci?
Dr. Ruth?
No, even better than that, Dr. Jill Biden.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yes.
Now we're talking.
Yes.
Because as most of our listeners probably have already heard, you know, the Bidens are going to be getting flack from every conceivable angle going into this new presidency because there's at least 74 million people out there who have it in for them. 74 million and one, I should say. And so the latest hit on the Bidens, beyond the Hunter stuff, beyond, you know, Joe's mental acuity, is that somebody wrote this column, this opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal.
It was Joseph Epstein.
Thank you. Taking a knock at Dr. Jill Biden because she is not a medical doctor. She's just got a lowly PhD. How dare she use the title of doctor? Is this the stupidest thing? And I wanted to use the F word in that sentence. Is this the stupidest thing that you have heard in 6 months?
Let me say the thing about this that really this silly, stupid controversy annoys me mostly because it is a prelude of things to come. Much as we saw with Obama, where there wasn't major things to criticize him about. And I'm sorry to the listeners who are out there shouting right now saying, but there were. You know, I'm not saying there's nothing to criticize Obama about and that there's nothing to criticize Biden about. But what you have here is we're going to go into, just like we did with Obama, is conservatives and Republicans trying to seek revenge for all the criticism of the president that came before. Bush was a debacle, and we know he was. And so conservatives then went after Obama, trying to tear him down for what was often some of the pettiest shit, some of the pettiest
No,
nonsense.
you're right. Pettiest shit. Pettiest shit.
That just didn't matter. I'm not saying there's not things that do matter. But there was a lot of pettiness, right?
And I just want to list a couple.
The tan suit.
The tan suit. The terrorist fist bump. With his wife. Do you guys remember this? In September of 2009, he'd been president about 7 or 8 months. He videotaped a message for school children at the beginning of the new school year. And conservatives tried to say he was trying to indoctrinate young school children into liberalism.
Yep, I remember that.
There was that. There was also he got yelled at for, or he got criticized for at one point in the Oval Office. There was a picture of him with his jacket off and his sleeves rolled up, and everyone was like, he's disrespecting the Oval Office. Until they found photos of many presidents past, including Reagan, the same way and with their feet up on the desk and blah blah blah. And this is what I'm afraid of when it comes to Biden, is that there may be things to criticize Biden about, but we're about to watch for the next however long, 4 years, we're about to watch as every little thing that he and Kamala Harris do, every petty little thing you can imagine becomes their own little controversy. And this PhD thing with Jill Biden, that's the start of it. That's like the launching pad of the petty criticisms that we're going to see.
The only thing that kind of gives me a little sense of hope, though, is, and I know Kevin hates cancel culture, but the good news was Joseph Epstein was on faculty at Northwestern. Okay, he taught a couple classes. Northwestern is now distancing him and saying, well, he didn't teach that many classes. He taught, blah, blah, blah. But now that he's no longer on their website at all, and they've said, well, he's no longer associated with us. So Northwestern is a pretty good school, I'm told. Ugly colors, I'm told, come on.
The irony here is that this is an Epstein that actually did hang himself.
That might be the line of the month, if not the year.
But so we're seeing now where, and yes, Tucker Carlson said terrible things about Dr. Biden. About this, and he's going to lose sponsors and he's going to gain sponsors, but Epstein's going to think twice about writing something like this again. And he was their sacrificial lamb. The next person who comes out and does something like this may say, I don't know if I want to say something like this because I don't know if I want to put my entire career at jeopardy just because I want to say I want to say something about Vice President Harris's husband being effeminate. That's an example, and it's terrible, but you know what I mean.
You were.
Well, the thing that you were totally saying that, but the thing that bothers me,
that's me,
is that it seems like also that this guy got an entire op-ed to say what is a petty little bitch. I mean, it's just a petty little bitch. And he started it with kiddo, and it was condescending, where I go, you know what? We've all had professors at some point. Those of us that went to university or whatnot had professors that had a PhD, and they were called doctor. And you know what? That is something that's earned. But also, for those that don't know it, the PhD predates the MD. Right. The MD, people started being called doctors because it actually turns out that MD wasn't respected at first. It was the PhD that was respected. So MDs started to call themselves doctors. PhD actually predates that. And a PhD, for those that don't know, is not easy to get. This ridiculousness that it's just like another degree, like you go to school for a couple of years and then they give you a PhD, is bullshit. There's a reason there's not a lot of people that get them.
And it is a doctorate degree. That's why they're called doctors.
Additionally, she has an educational doctorate, which, the superintendent at almost every school I work at, and we refer to them as doctor. And, and in fact, my wife went to a very good school in a private academy in Nashville where most of their teachers had PhDs, and they referred to their teachers as Dr. Livingston, Dr. Wells, Dr. Smith. He was a mad scientist, but, and so on. See?
It's a pop culture reference, everybody.
Well, I'm going to throw out a pop culture reference that won't win over our listeners. I'll get back to you, Greg, but let me just build on your thought.
No. That's my point. The point is there are in education, which her degree is in, doctor is a very common phrase that we use all the time.
Right.
Yes. Go on. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say I worked on a show called A Different World many, many years back, and one of the producers was a gentleman known as Dr. William Cosby. He was Bill Cosby as a comedian, but he always used Dr. William Cosby as his executive producer credit because he had a doctorate too. Now, I think his was an honorary doctorate.
His was honorary,
which is a little different than what we're talking about here.
No.
Oh, no?
No, he had several honoraries, but he also had a doctorate.
Oh, I stand corrected.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of I believe I only knew that recently too. I always thought it was just honorary, but he actually got an honorary. I mean, he actually got a doctorate.
And by the way, while we're on the topic, talking about potentially presumptuous titles, I understand that Space Force members now are supposed to be referred to as guardians. Guardians of the Galaxy.
I'm still trying to figure out what the hell Space Force even is, and I get that that's probably my own ignorance.
No, it's not.
Because, and I don't want to belittle it by saying what I'm about to say because it's going to belittle it. But I also don't care, and it's not because I don't think that it's important or it's something that we don't need or whatever. But since the communication of this has been so awful, I don't know what it's supposed to be and why I'm supposed to care about it. It's something that's been put out there that I go, you've sold this to me essentially like it's a mascot. So I don't know what Space Force actually is, why I should care. And if you're calling them guardians, I go, this all feels like I'm being set up for an alien invasion that nobody told me is coming.
Right. So the Space Force has multiple missions, the Guardians. Okay. And to be clear, we now have, airmen, we have Marines, we have soldiers, we have seamen, don't giggle, and we have Guardians, which is just ridiculous. Okay. So, but the whole point with the Guardians, it will be like any issues with another country interfering with our satellites. Okay. So they will go up and they will just mess them up. Oh, look, China is disabling one of our communication satellites. Oh, well, quick, call out the Guardians. Okay, cool. If there's an issue, womp, 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 womp.
I'm sorry.
I know.
I'm sorry, but that's funny to me. Call out the Guardians.
Call out the Guardians. Or if, and you know what? That's a super serious thing, though.
You're not allowed to mock Scientology if you have a space program that sounds like it was based on something they came up with.
Greg, you were saying?
No. But, to be quite honest, and we mock it until all of a sudden I can't get cell coverage because a Chinese missile disabled a satellite for me. And now I'm pissed off about it because my Guardians weren't there.
But what we learned this week is that we don't need missile technology to protect our satellites, because what will ultimately take them down is the cyber attacks like the Russians apparently have done to us that infiltrated so much of our electronic infrastructure. God knows what they can do. You know what? Instead of creating Space Force, he just should have gotten, the tech guys from Best Buy, the Geek Squad.
The Geek Squad.
Because they can protect us better than, people in uniforms.
I'm going to start calling the Geek Squad the Guardians.
The Guardians.
That's what I'm going to do.
Get them better. Get them the red shirts from Star Trek. The insignia is the same. The real issue is that Mike Pompeo even said, "Oh, it's the Russians." Everyone said it's the Russians. It's the Russians.
It's a hack. Yeah.
But Trump just had this complete meltdown and said, "You know what? I don't think it's the Russians. I'm almost sure it's not." And Trump had a complete meltdown this week, wanting to declare martial law.
Hold on, Greg. Before you do that, and I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. I just want to say real quick, and I apologize, but I just want to say real quick. This is one thing that's so irritating about misinformation and what's going on in North America these days, in the fact that I guarantee you the average American knows more about the fact that there's a Space Force and what people are being called than even know that there was a Russian hack and how big of a deal it is. I'm stunned by the fact that the Russian hack seems to barely be news. It seems to barely register. And yet things like Space Force and Guardians, we know about. We're laughing about it and people are kind of joking, but I go, while we're talking about that Russian hack is a big effing deal. It is a big deal.
But most of the people don't believe the Russian hack. And the people who do believe it say, oh, of course there's a Russian hack. The Russian hacks have been happening all along, and we've been told the Russian hacks are coming. We've been saying this for months, that the Russians are going to hack our systems. And through the whole thing, we said, this is going to happen. We need to up our cybersecurity. And they're like, no, this won't happen. This won't happen. No one who believes it is surprised. And the other half don't believe it's actually true.
And I just have a piece of advice for everyone out there and my friends here as well. If you own stocks, if you've got a 401k or some stocks through work, or you're lucky enough to have invested, or you just have several bank accounts, you should this week print out all of your holdings like a statement. Get a recent statement or print one out, keep it on your computer, and every month update it, because the day may come when they decide the way that they want to screw with the United States is to wipe out our financial system. And that will be a big effing deal. But for my friends here who I'd love to protect, you don't have to be a victim of it. At least have a record of what your holdings are. So when your Charles Schwab or your Fidelity or your Raymond James advisor calls you up and says, gee, I don't know what to tell you, Mr. Anderson. We've lost all of your records with 150 million other people. You have a copy of them.
And for all the people out there that are living, especially people who work in my industry, work in the entertainment industry and live like I do, you need to make sure that you have 2 rubber bands on the shoebox with your cash in it that you keep under the bed.
So what is this about? Breakdancing is in the Olympics, but Russia is out? What happened there?
Well, Russia will. I'll let Ward. Do you want to take I'll do the first part. Russia is been banned for the next 2 Olympic cycles. So at least until 2000.
For cyber hacking?
No, for doping.
I know.
Oh, okay. And not only Olympics, but any major international events. So like Pan American Games, I believe, or anything on an international level. And this is a huge blow. So they can't compete under the Russian flag. So
here's the thing. Everybody gets upset when, the Russians are juicing and breaking the rules. But, we think it's kind of amusing that Alex Rodriguez and Barry Bonds were doing it for years.
No, I don't think anyone found it amusing.
Oh, I think a lot of people did.
Oh, okay.
I was entertained.
But when the Russians do it, it's breaking protocol.
The thing about the thing about doping is that I'm okay with it because I own stock in an asterisk company, and so every time that appears next to a name,
used, yeah,
I'm cashing in.
Yeah, I mean,
but you know what?
Yeah, totally.
This is actually, for those that don't know, Russians and doping in the sports world has been going on for a long time. This is a debate we've been having, I think, 20 years that there's been issues with Russian athletes and doping.
Yeah.
So for the average viewer or consumer, especially of Olympic entertainment, which only comes around every 4 years or whatever, it may not seem like a big deal, but in the athletic world, this is a debate that's been going on for like 20 years. It's a different beast. So,
yeah, sometimes I just wonder whether it wouldn't be better just to let everybody do it and not try to police it, and just understand that the old records don't compare the new records to the old records, but let everybody be on the same playing field, which is, if you want to juice up, juice up. If you feel it's bad for your health, don't do it. I know that there's that question of, well, what about people who are worried about their future health and they don't want to, jeopardize their long-term health just to potentially, win an Olympic gold or silver medal? Why do they have to compete against people who are doing that? But, it's the nature of sports these days.
Do you remember the sci-fi magazine Omni? Like in the 70s and the 80s. Yeah. So it was awesome. Used to sci-fi stories. I read it as like a kid because you'd see like the illustrations.
I'm sorry. I got to say though, it was a science magazine. It wasn't sci-fi. Wasn't it? Wasn't it
science and a lot of science fiction. I used to like it like when I was a kid because the illustrations, there used to be like usually like all sorts of like robots with nipples and stuff like that. It was perfect for like a nerd. But anyways, the point of it being...
That's why I like National Geographic.
Robots with nipples. Point being, there was an article I remember as a kid about how at some point they will switch the Olympics and they'll say, you know what? Screw it. Everyone take all the drugs you need as long as you're under a doctor's orders. And this way, everything is safe. And they're like, and you want a robot arm? Go for it. Sure. And they're like, the point being is, right now we have all these people doing these illegal drugs and people are dying. This is crazy. Get under a good doctor, and now we've got super people. This is awesome. This makes a lot more sense. 17-foot high jump, whatever. It was a real, and I was like, this makes sense. I mean, I was like, sports ball, whatever. Doctors.
I can't I can't be the only person here, though. I mean, Kevin Kelton, for the listeners that don't know for some reason,
won several Olympic gold medals.
Mostly in basket weaving. But for those that don't know, Kevin was a writer for Saturday Night Live. One of the all-time greatest sketches is the full pro-drug Olympic sketch from the mid-'80s where, you know, Phil Hartman rips his own arms off trying to lift weights and everything like that. We're talking about things that they predicted in like 1986 or whatever that was. You know, it's life imitating art, right? And I find that so funny that, you know, Russia sat out one of the 1984 Olympics. So, you know, it's retro. Everything old is new again.
And, they sat out the 84 Olympics because of political reasons.
Yeah, I know, but whatever,
Yeah.
you know, bring back the 80s. I say we do it.
Yeah, we won a shitload of...
We're putting breakdancing in the goddamn Olympics. The 80s are back, goddammit.
And speaking of the 80s being back, there's a segue there. Can I use it?
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. But I was going to say, remember in the 80s, McDonald's had that you could win from the Olympics, and we all won like 1 million cheeseburgers because the Russians weren't in.
Which was parodied in one of the best Simpsons episodes of all time.
That's right. Okay, you can. Yes.
So speaking of great television shows and the 80s being back, Ward, do you want to take that?
Okay, and once again, this is a shout out to the boss, Kevin Kelton, because he was a writer on the TV series Night Court, and it was announced this week that there's a reboot in the works, a reboot of sorts in the works. But a lot of people hate reboots. I don't necessarily, depending on what it is. But it was announced this week they're talking about rebooting Night Court, popular TV series from the 80s. And Kevin, you were a writer on that series. You and I have talked about this off the air, and both of us has said, hilariously, about a month before it was announced that they were working on a Night Court reboot, I joked with you about if there were a Night Court reboot, what would it look like? Yeah. And we talked about all the reasons it wouldn't work. And those reasons still stand with this announcement they've made this week. Do you want to talk about it, Kev?
Well, all of my friends, including you, Ward, and I think maybe Greg, you might have done it separately, were sending me this, PMs with a link. Hey, did you hear about this? Night Court is coming back. Apparently, NBC has decided to bring back the Night Court franchise with John Larroquette still playing Dan Fielding, but Harry is no longer with us. So they're going to cast some actress. I'm sure she's a good actress. I forget her name.
I'm sorry, Kevin. I don't want to interrupt you, but I just want to tell the listeners. Harry is Harry Anderson, for those that don't know, who was the central figure of the TV series Night Court, who passed away a few years ago. So we're talking about a TV series that's going to go forward without its main character, without its principal character.
So, yeah, he played Harry Stone. So they're going to cast an actress who is ostensibly Harry Stone's daughter, who went to law school, became a judge, and got the same judgeship at this crummy little Night Court in Manhattan. And now she is the Night Court judge, and Dan Fielding is still there in some capacity. I read several articles on this. I did not see Marky Post's name mentioned, who is still with us. I did not see Richard Moll's name mentioned, who is still with us. I didn't see Charlie Robinson's name mentioned.
Marsha Warfield is still very much with us. Maybe those people will be used in some capacity. They're still formulating how this is going to work. But I'm very skeptical that this particular reboot is going to work. Now, let's remember, we were talking earlier, in the spirit of reboots, they sometimes work. Mission Impossible falls into that category. Originally a 60s TV show, now doing its 7th very successful movie. So sometimes reboots do work. But in this case, television shows, you remember them fondly because you remember the actual television show, not just the name. And the problem with bringing this back, other than the fact that they're not using anybody that I know of from the original producing staffs or writing staffs, and there were many, many talented people that are still with us who could have come on to guide this process, to guide this production. They're bringing in a brand new producer, someone who has some major credits but never worked on a Night Court season. And
the tone of Night Court was specific to the 80s. Night Court was what I used to call the cotton candy of sitcoms. It was goofy. It was surreal. It was irreverent in a very broad kind of style. And there are no sitcoms on today that work in that tone. And I don't know. They're either going to try to at all. So they're either going to try to duplicate that tone, which will bomb, or they're just going to appropriate the name, pretend that they've somehow, updated it with Harry Stone's daughter as the judge, and they'll do some dark kind of contemporary version of Night Court that's not really Night Court. They're just using the name. And again, you mentioned, and I'll get to you in a second, Greg. You mentioned about going ahead with a series where the lead actor has died, and you mentioned Phil Hartman. Phil Hartman was the lead of a show called News Radio. 4 years running, great show. Unfortunately, Phil Hartman met an untimely death. They tried to go on with it after him. It doesn't work. It never works. And this isn't going to work. Greg, what do you think?
Okay, a couple of things. One, the actress that they've got cast so far is, her name is Melissa Rauch. She was on The Big Bang Theory. So they've been trying to find a vehicle.
She's a wonderful actress. I just want to say,
funny.
Great
not taking
actress.
anything away from her.
No, and I don't think you were. Two,
she was Bernadette. She was Bernadette on The Big Bang Theory. For those that know that show.
So, and you guys have much more TV experience than I do. I'm a huge nerd, though. So there have been some reboots that have worked really well, some that haven't. Like, if you guys remember the Knight Rider reboot, which was terrible. Kit transformed into a truck, and that was terrible. But, I mean, if you think about, like, the Star Trek.
That was one of two Knight Rider reboots,
yes.
by the way.
Star Trek, remember, rebooted the next generation.
Very successfully, yes.
Hugely successfully. So it can work. And remember, and even there's always exceptions to the rules. Remember, Valerie's Family, with Valerie, what was it?
Valerie Harper.
Valerie Harper. And
it was originally called Valerie.
It was called Valerie's Family, I think. And she
okay, so the show, I'm just going to interrupt you because I hate to be a dick, but I know so much about that particular story. So Valerie Harper had contract dispute with producers of a show called Valerie. It was a hit in its first season. She left the show, but the show was such a hit they wanted to continue. They called it Valerie's Family for the second season, but she sued because it was using her name. It was then retitled The Hogan Family, and it continued for several more seasons.
Yep, and it was successful. They brought in Sandy Duncan, and Jason Bateman was on there. And I'm trying to think if there was anyone else. But it was a great show. And it can work, and there are exceptions.
Right. They're trying to do that now with Roseanne, right? The Connors.
Yeah, and that was another one.
And the Connors is essentially working.
Yes.
Right? It is essentially working. But Valerie's Family, the Hogan family and all that, worked only in the fact that it was a currently running sitcom where it was, although named after Valerie Harper, it was still an ensemble show. So when she left, it was able to continue. Same thing with the Hogan family, the Connors, with Roseanne. Even though it was called Roseanne, it's essentially an ensemble show. The argument could be made that Night Court was like that too. But right now, we only have John LaRoquette from the original cast. Right. So if you were to tell me that it was being done with more of the original cast, then I would be more likely to say, yeah, it's got a chance,
Yeah, and to be quite honest, the concept that the Dan Fielding character is still a Night Court prosecutor. Yeah, it just doesn't carry water. And I mean, if he was,
they may be playing with that. I was trying to read between the lines of the articles, and they didn't say he was back as the prosecutor. So they may be subtly changing his role there.
Yeah. Maybe
he's the district attorney running the city or something. I don't know.
Because he's an older gentleman. He was just on, The Librarian recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's a great actor. I really enjoy his work. I don't know him personally. He that restraining order.
For the listeners that don't know, there were two actresses that had played had principal roles on Night Court
as bailiffs, and both
as bailiffs in this courtroom, and both passed away, both within a year of each other. Right, one passed
Selma
away,
Diamond
and they replaced her with
first. And
right.
I feel horrible. I'm blanking on the name, Flo or Florence. I'm blanking on her name. Passed away after being cast in that same role. And then Marsha Warfield, and people were afraid that there was a curse on the role, but of course Marsha's still very much with us and a wonderful woman.
Yes. But they had an episode where they addressed the fact that this actress had died.
Yeah.
And it was a very, very touching episode in a show that was known for its broad, silly, comical humor. And we just don't do that anymore. No. People just don't do. I mean, think of a broad, silly show that's on. You wouldn't see It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia handle a topic like this with the same kind. I'm just saying you wouldn't see it with the same kind of touchingness.
The season 13 finale of Always Sunny, where Mac comes out to his father, was beautifully done, and I did cry.
Touche.
I did cry.
Fair enough.
So let me wrap up this conversation because we're running very long. But first of all, I want to say it was Florence Hallop, who is the actress that played Florence Kleiner, who passed away after being cast to replace Selma Diamond, a very funny actress. I'll share this with you. I hope it's an interesting story. I think it is. As you could probably imagine, one of the toughest things in working as a comedian or in television or anything creative is coming up with ideas. I spent months during my second season at Night Court trying to develop an idea for a Bull story where he woke up one morning and discovered that he was inside out. And I just had this idea that this might be a funny storyline. And I spent weeks and maybe months trying to figure out the physics of this. And I came up with this idea, Greg, that he was having some problems relieving himself some bowel issues one day. And instead of using a suppository, he took a plunger and was trying to use a plunger back there. And it somehow pulled so hard that he turned himself inside out. Of course, I never was able to break that story. It never appeared in the series. But that's the kind of stuff that I spent my 20s, 30s, and 40s doing and making a lot of money.
That's hilarious. I just think it's funny that we're able to talk more about Night Court than Donald Trump.
They're both surreal. And with that, we want to thank everybody for listening. There is one more topic that I want to bring up, but it's a personal topic. If you've been looking for open fire politics and having trouble finding it lately, it's not your fault. Facebook misunderstood a post that one of our administrators posted in the group. They took it for hate speech, which it was not, and they shut down the group. And we had to appeal. We are still waiting for some kind of a rectification of this. But in the meantime, we took a sister group that was about entertainment. It was called Open Fire Entertainment, and we kind of shoehorned the word politics in there. So if you're looking to join us in Open Fire Politics, it's now called Open Fire Politics and Entertainment. Please find it on Facebook. Then you can join us there. We're all there, and we'd love to see you there too. And with that, we want to thank you. We're going into our Christmas break. Guys, I got to ask you, big plans for the holidays? What's on tap?
Well, for those of you that don't know, I am, and although I really do enjoy lying to all of you and bullshitting, I actually am a bit of what they call a Christmas expert. I'm a Christmas historian. And so this is actually my busy time of year because I do a lot of morning show and morning radio appearances talking about little-known facts about Christmas and little-known historical things about Christmas. So I'm doing a lot of that. But I am also an animator, and so you can see several Christmas music videos that I've made for various artists on YouTube.
Oh, and they're great.
Under Thank you, Greg.
They're
under
awesome.
the name Potamation. Potamation is the name of my little animation studio here in Toronto. But if you ever, for some reason, want to discuss Christmas history and pop culture Christmas history facts and things like that, you can always find me. Google Ward Anderson. I'm not hard to find, but that is actually, oddly enough, one of my mainstays. And so I'm actually busy this time of year, but I love it because it is actually my wheelhouse.
Well, again, on that, I'd love to talk more about that, but we're running long. Good night, everybody. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.